to Brewing Success, where growth is the mission, change is the reward, and progress is the goal. I am your host, Andrea Gebhardt. I'm a former educator turned passionate entrepreneur whose desire to create impact has never wavered. I have spent the last decade teaching, mentoring, and coaching people on how to create success in their lives and businesses with proven strategies and systems that not only bring about change, but big results. When it comes down to it, teaching is my specialty, leadership is my jam, and inspiring you to live a bigger, fuller life is what I'm all about. This podcast will give you the knowledge and tools you need to brew success in almost any area of your life. You're going to walk away each week feeling inspired, motivated, and ready to step outside your comfort zone and into the next level of who you're meant to be. Now let's get into today's episode. Hey everyone, welcome back to Brewing Success. Pull up a chair, grab your notes, and settle in because today's conversation is really a conversation I genuinely wish had existed when I was earlier in my journey and my leadership career, not because I lacked ambition and not because I wasn't working hard, but because nobody really ever handed me a map. And today I'm going to do that. We're going to be talking about how to become the leader your next level requires. And I'm going to do that by talking about something I created called the leadership ladder. Now, what's really interesting is I have a mentorship program. And my mentorship program is really incredible. People participate in it. It's a year long typically, and I'm working on kind of devising and structuring a new framework, a new structure for it. And in one of our final sessions, I presented this idea of the leadership ladder and really helping you understand like the developmental aspects of leadership from the context of like high level leader to highest level leader and what leadership actually looks like. And in sharing that, in teaching that concept to the group that I was mentoring, a side quest, I guess is a popular term we use these days, kind of developed when I started thinking about the leadership ladder in another way, in another context, and really using it to help people understand where they are in their leadership journey and how to advance to the next level. And so, something I've come to understand after years of building, leading, growing, and yes, of course, rebuilding from the ground up is that it's that most people don't lack ambition. They lack awareness. They want more, right? Everybody wants more impact, more income, more influence, more freedom. But most people are operating from a level of leadership that'll only sustain the life that they are trying to build. And the disconnect between where most people are and what they want quietly over time exhausts them. They keep pushing, they keep grinding, and they struggle to figure out why the results are not matching the effort. And some of you might have heard me just say that and be like, wait a minute, like I totally feel that way. Oh my gosh. And so here's the truth that changed everything for me. You don't rise by wanting more. You rise by becoming more. The wanting is easy. It's the becoming that's the work. And most people are very, very busy doing the wanting. So I'm going to start by saying something that might sting just a little. And of course, I say it with all the love in my heart because this is what we do here, right? Most people are trying to achieve level 5 results with level 2 habits. They have championship dreams and practice optional discipline. They want legacy level impact while operating with participant level commitment. And the latter, the beautiful, uncompromising, entirely fair ladder of leadership development does not negotiate with ambition alone. It only responds to growth. So today I want to introduce you to what I call the leadership ladder. 5 levels, 5 distinct and fully realized versions of who you are as a leader. And here's my promise to you. By the time we finish climbing today, you will know exactly where you are standing, exactly what is keeping you there, and exactly what you need to develop to take the next step up. This isn't a theory. This is a coaching session. So let's get into it. We're going to start with level 1. So as I go through each of these levels, I want you to hear them kind of as descriptors of those levels. You're going to identify with bits and pieces of certain ones. You're going to recognize people on your team that you lead falling into certain categories. You're going to immediately see people that you look up to, mentors, coaches who are at other levels. You're going to start to see and understand a lot. So let's get into the first level, level 1, which I call the participant. So the participant is someone who shows up. And, before I even go any further, I want to actually honor that before I say anything else, because showing up literally is half the battle. And in a world full of people who intend to begin, the participant has at least started. One of the defining characteristics of level 1, the participant, is that they show up primarily for themselves. Their presence and level of action is conditional on comfort. Their engagement rises and falls on their personal motivation, and the primary filter for every decision, every opportunity, every ask is a singular question. What is in this for me right now? The participant isn't malicious. They're just unawakened. They have not yet discovered that their greatest growth, their deepest satisfaction, and their most meaningful results live on the other side of contribution. They wait to be inspired before they act. They wait to feel ready before they try. Wait to see results before they commit. And that perpetual waiting is the very mechanism keeping them anchored on that bottom rung, level 1. The participant attends the Zooms, the meeting, but rarely prepares for it. They complete tasks, but rarely exceed them. They follow instructions well when motivation is high and find creative reasons to disengage when it's not, also known as excuses. They celebrate other people's wins in public and quietly wonder why those wins are not happening for them in private. To the people around them, the participant can appear enthusiastic in short bursts and mostly inconsistent over time. They're the person everyone likes, but no one quite counts on. They have potential that everyone can see and that they themselves have not yet chosen to take seriously. Their hangups are rooted in passivity, entitlement of outcome without investment of effort, and a deeply held belief, often unconscious, might I add, that the right circumstances will eventually arrive and carry them forward. They are waiting for a wave rather than learning to swim. So if you're sitting here thinking, ooh, okay, this is me, I'm on the first level, the first rung of the ladder, don't be ashamed. Listen, we all start somewhere. Instead, how about you realize that that awareness is the real flex? And it's only through awareness that we have an opportunity to create real, meaningful change. So let's talk about what it's going to take for you to go from a level 1 to a level 2. First and foremost, you must develop personal accountability without external pressure. This means that the participant must develop the discipline to follow through even when no one is watching, when no one is asking, and when motivation has temporarily left the building. Readiness for advancement looks like doing the things they were never asked to do simply because they recognized it needed to be done. This makes me think about my teenagers, BTW. I'm like, why am I text talking to you guys right now? Like, what is happening, by the way? Makes me think of my teenagers. You know what I mean? Like, as a mom, you're just, why do I have to tell you to pick up your socks off the floor? If you see your socks on the floor, you should just pick them up. My kids are participants. Oh, I really got to work on that with them. So again, they readiness for advancement at this level looks like doing things they were never asked to do simply because they recognized they needed to be done. That self-initiated action is the first signal that a participant is becoming a producer, right? Which is level 2, and we'll talk about that in a second. So as a level 1, you must also develop a contribution mindset over a consumption mindset. The shift from what do I get to what can I give is not a small adjustment. It's a fundamental reorientation of identity. The participant who is ready to climb begins asking how they can add value before they're asked to. They arrive early, they stay late, they offer solutions instead of cataloging problems. That posture, sustained over time, is what earns them the right to elevate to the next level. And then lastly, the participant must prove to themselves first and to others second that they can be counted on when the conditions are imperfect. Proficiency here looks like a track record, however short, of doing whatever they said they would do when they said they would do it, without needing to be reminded. Consistency, even in small things, is the currency that purchases trust. I'm going to say that again. Consistency, even in the small things, is the currency that purchases trust, and trust is the admission ticket to level 2. So let's talk about level 2, the producer. The producer is a doer. And let me just say that the world desperately needs more doers. They are action-oriented, results-focused, and they have unlocked something the participant hasn't quite done yet. The understanding that motion creates momentum. Remember, the participant is waiting for the wave. And they just think that the wave is going to come and then bring them to a position of success. Whereas the producer understands that motion creates momentum. And I say this all the time in my coaching, in my speaking. If you've been on a Zoom with me, you have heard it. You are the momentum that you're looking for. The producer works hard, consistently, sometimes relentlessly, and that work ethic is genuinely admirable. But here's where it gets nuanced, and I need you to stay with me because this is the level where the most talented, most driven people get quietly stuck without ever understanding why. The producer's identity is almost entirely constructed around output. Their self-worth is a direct function of what they accomplish. And because they are genuinely good at producing results, they receive enough positive reinforcement to keep doing exactly what they're doing, which means they can spend years and sometimes even careers at level 2, mistaking busyness for growth and activity for advancement. The producer is the first one in and often the last one out. They hit their numbers, they finish their projects, they can be enormously valuable to an organization or a team, but they tend to operate in isolation because collaboration feels inefficient to them and developing others feels like a distraction from the real work. They are competitive in a way that serves their individual metrics and occasionally undermines collective culture. To people around them, the producer looks like a high performer. To a discerning leader, however, they look like someone who has mastered the doing of level 2 without yet understanding that level 3 requires an entirely different skill set. I will tell you right now that when I was in college, I was 100% a level 2 producer. I was the person who we would have a group project and I'd be like, hi, I'll do it. I'll do the whole thing. You guys go party. You go have a great weekend. I'm going to take this. I'm going to write it, create it, do it all because I didn't want the collaboration. It felt like a waste of time. It felt like inefficient. I don't need your ideas. I got ideas. Like, I was sitting here thinking about like looking back on my younger self, like, oh, you cute little thing, you. Yeah, wow. I'm so glad that we have the gift and the ability to experience life and time together, to be able to gain the wisdom and the insight and the perspective to look back at our younger selves and be like, wow, and be able to be like, wow, you've really come a long way. It's so good. But level 2, mistaking busyness for growth and activity for advancement. That to me is such an eye opener. And even creating this and putting this all together, I instantly started categorizing people in my own team, in my own organization that are level 1s, that are level 2s, and starting to have a better understanding, not just why they show up the way that they do, but maybe what is holding them back and how I, as a leader, can create an environment where they have the ability to grow and advance. And so for those of you out there who are higher level leaders, I hope you're picking up on that too. So the primary hangup of someone on level 2 is a conflation of personal productivity with leadership. They believe that if they work hard enough, produce enough, achieve enough, the next level will naturally be granted to them. And then when it's not, when someone less productive but more relationally intelligent advances ahead of them, they experience frustration that they can't fully articulate because the framework they've been operating from doesn't account for it. So here are 3 things that the producer must develop to advance to level 3. Number 1, they have to develop relational intelligence and genuine investment in others. So the producer has to learn how to care about people's growth with the same level of intensity they currently reserve for their own results. This is uncomfortable for them because it feels unquantifiable. You know, the producer is ready for the next level when they begin voluntarily mentoring. Hear what I just said there. Voluntarily mentoring, encouraging, or developing someone else without being asked, without tracking what they're going to receive in return. The selfless investment is the embryo of influence. Number 2, the producer must learn to lift their eyes from the task in front of them and begin evaluating the broader landscape. We've got to take on that shift of strategic thinking over tactical execution. They have to start to ask themselves, am I working on the right things? Are the things they are producing aligned with the direction of the team or the needs of the organization? Proficiency here looks like the producer regularly asking not just how do I do this well, but why does this matter? And is there a better way to approach it? That shift from executor to strategist is the intellectual leap that level 3 demands. And lastly, number 3, the capacity to receive and integrate feedback. I'm going to tell you right now, as a leader who coaches people and has been doing so over the last 13 years, I can always tell where someone's leadership level is in the way that they receive feedback. You can always tell. And that's why we need to talk about this here, because the producer's identity is so tied to performance that feedback can feel threatening rather than instructive. The producer who is ready to climb has learned to receive corrections with genuine openness, the ability to separate their worth from their output, and to treat criticism as data rather than judgment. So a producer who can be coached is a producer who is ready to become an influencer, which is level 3. So before we go any further, let me just establish something really quick. The influencer on this letter has nothing to do with follower counts, content calendars, ring lights, brand partnerships, product placement, any of that. Although, again, absolutely no judgment if that is what you do. But the influencer in the context of leadership development is someone whose life and work has begun to exert a meaningful, tangible, and often, unintentional pull on the people around them. People want to be near them. They want to learn from them. They find themselves thinking about things the influencer said long after the conversation has ended. That is real influence, and it's earned, not manufactured. So the influencer has developed something the first 2 levels have not fully cultivated, and that's credibility. Not the kind announced through titles or manufactured through personal branding, the quiet, gravitational kind that accumulates through years of integrity, consistency, and showing up the same way whether the room is full or empty. It's the credibility of character, and it is the most durable currency in leadership. So I want to just draw your attention to something that I just said. This type of gravitational pull, this influence, doesn't come from days or weeks or months. It comes from years. It accumulates through years of integrity, consistency, and showing up the same way, whether the room is full or empty. It's the credibility of character. And I always say that consistency skyrockets credibility. And not just consistency in showing up and posting every single day, but consistency in who you are, what you stand for, what people know to be true about you. People seek out the influencer. They ask for their opinion. They bring their problems to them, not because they're required to, but because they trust the quality of the response they're going to get. The influencer tends to speak with an authority that is calm rather than loud, and a wisdom that draws from genuine experiences rather than theoretical knowledge. To those around them, they are magnetic. To leaders above them, they are valuable. To the people they are beginning to develop, they are a glimpse of what is possible. Their most significant hang-up, however, is one of the most seductive traps on the entire ladder. The influencer can begin to love the attention that they're getting from this magnetism and this, gravitational pull without fully accepting the responsibility that attaches to it. Oh my gosh. And I see this all the time. They love the attention. They love that people come to them. They love that they're sought out. They love that they're asked to speak. They love that they're asked to be a contributor to a larger project, but they haven't quite accepted the full responsibility that attaches to this level of leadership. And again, this is a very slippery slope. And I've watched some of the most skilled and equipped people lose their footing and backslide in their leadership because of this. They enjoy being sought after without always being intentional about where they are pointing people. Influence, guys, without direction is just charisma, and charisma without character is a liability dressed as an asset. And that is, goodness gracious, not anywhere that you want to be or go. So we have to be very mindful. And, when you think about this, and we're talking about this level of leadership as the influencer level 3, and you think about a ladder, this is that midway up, right? Where you are. And this is where it's always midway where people get tripped up. It's always midway where, we start to creep up in leadership and stature and, credibility and all these types of things. And sometimes we can compromise all the work that we've done, all the credibility that we've gained, because we haven't fully accepted or recognized the responsibility that's attached to it. You're not being intentional about where you're pointing people. Again, influence without direction is just charisma, and charisma without character is a liability dressed as an asset. So there's 3 things that the influencer must develop to advance to level 4. The first thing, the influencer must move beyond being someone people admire and become someone people can follow. That right there requires a huge level of intentionality about what they actually stand for, what they will not compromise, and what direction they are genuinely pointing their sphere of influence toward. Readiness for advancement looks like the influencer making decisions that are values-driven, even when those decisions are costly, unpopular, or inconvenient. The second thing that the influencer must develop is structured and intentional development of other people. So the influencer must move from inspiring people organically to developing them systematically. And there's a meaningful difference between someone being encouraged by your presence and someone being genuinely developed by your investment. Proficiency here looks like the influencer actively identifying people with potential, creating intentional environments for their growth, and measuring their own success not by what they accomplish, but by what they help others become. And third, the accountability for outcomes, not just intentions. Again, this is a big one. Influencers tend to be well-intentioned, but level 4 leadership demands a much harder standard. Accountability for results. So the influencer who is ready to lead stops measuring themselves by how hard they tried and start measuring themselves by what actually changed because of their effort. And that shift from intention to outcome is the maturity marker that separates the influencer from the leader. Influence without intention is just noise. You can have people's attention without earning their trust, And at level 4, people are not just watching you, they're following you. There's a world of difference between these two. So let's talk about at level 4, the leader. Welcome to the rung. Most people say they aspire to, but few truly understand, because authentic leadership, the kind that lives at level 4, is not a reward for accumulated achievement. It is a calling that demands a fundamental restructuring of your entire orientation toward success. The leader at this level has made the most consequential shift on the entire ladder. They have moved from how do I succeed to how do I create conditions in which others can succeed. And that shift, simple as it sounds, changes every single decision that they make. The level 4 leader accepts full responsibility for the growth, well-being, and development of the people they serve. Not partial responsibility, not responsibility when it's convenient, not responsibility when things are going well, full responsibility. And they understand that this stewardship is not a burden. It is the highest privilege available to a person who has chosen to lead. A level 4 leader is distinguished by sacrifice. They give their best time, best attention, best resources to developing the people around them rather than protecting their own comfort or advancing their own agenda. They make decisions that serve long-term health, the long-term health of their team rather than the short-term personal metrics. They create cultures where people feel genuinely seen, valued, and challenged. To those they lead, they're seen as transformative. To organizations, these people are irreplaceable. Critically, the level 4 leader understands that their own ceiling is determined not by their individual capacity, but by the collective capacity of the people they develop, knowing and fully understanding that you can only go as high as you bring people with you. The most formidable hang-up, unfortunately, for level 4, for the leader, is ego. And I say that with deep compassion because ego at this level is subtle and sophisticated. The level 4 leader has accumulated enough genuine accomplishment that the gravitational pull towards self-importance is very real. And they start to believe that their instincts are infallible, that their methods are irreproducible, and that their presence is indispensable. And the moment a leader begins to believe that they are the most important person in the room is the same moment that they have quietly stopped growing. I've seen this happen to people in real life, in real time. The ego swell is what I like to call it, the pounding of the chest from the stage, the inability to relate because of the pedestal they've placed themselves on, and the slow fade of integrity and honesty because they somehow are above the law and impervious to karma and consequences. And as a good friend of mine always says, your ego is not your amigo. And as a growing and developing leader, you must work to find the healthy balance between confidence and humility. And so at this level, there are 3 things that the level 4 leader needs to develop to be able to move into that 5th level, which we'll talk about in a second. But the first development that must take place is the deliberate and joyful release of the ego. You see, the leader must arrive at a place where another person's breakthrough genuinely brings them more satisfaction than their own recognition. This is not performative humility. This is a deep, authentic reorientation of what success means. Readiness for advancement at this level looks like the leader who consistently and genuinely celebrates others, elevating others into the spotlight and finding their greatest fulfillment in someone else's growth rather than their own applause. Secondly, the level 4 leader develops people. The difference here, the level 5 leader, the one we're going to talk about next, the level 5 leader develops leaders who develop people, and the level 4 leader develops people. That distinction is everything. And proficiency here looks like the leader intentionally identifying, investing in, and releasing other leaders into their own spheres of influence, trusting that the multiplication will accomplish far more than the leader ever could achieve alone. And it requires the generosity to let people go and the faith to trust that what you have poured into them and the vision to see beyond your own immediate impact. And this is a difficult one, especially when you're leading a team in an organization. It is difficult to, spend that time and invest in people and then kind of turn them loose and trust that it's all going to be okay. Sometimes as leaders, we hold on to people and we hold them too close and we actually kind of, consequently rob them of the ability to develop and multiply leaders because we're not letting them go. It's like the same thing of your kids. If you don't ever teach your kids how to cook, you're robbing them of that ability. If you don't teach your kids valuable lessons that are going to help them become successful adults, it's going to be a struggle. And so this is tricky and difficult at times. The third development that the leader needs to work toward is thinking in generations rather than quarters. So the move to legacy leadership, which is level 5, requires a fundamental extension of the leader's time horizon, meaning they've got to begin asking themselves, not what am I building, but what am I leaving behind? So there's that shift in, not what am I doing, but what am I creating? What am I leaving behind? More of that legacy mindset, not what will this accomplish, but what will this set in motion? And a leader who is ready for level 5 has begun to make decisions whose full fruit they will never personally harvest. And they're at peace with that because the mission has become larger than their own chapter in it. Your ceiling as a leader is the collective ceiling of the people that you develop. So you want to pour into them with everything that you have. Your next level is on the other side of their growth. And that takes us right into the pinnacle, level 5, the legacy leader. This is where the conversation gets quiet, where the tone shifts, and where we move from the language of strategy into the language of something more sacred. Level 5 is not primarily about what you're building. It's about what you're becoming and what that becoming sets in motion in the lives of the people you may never personally meet. And I will tell you, this is really interesting because when I was a teacher, I would sit across from parents at, back to school night, and I would just look them in the face and I'd say, hey, listen, I don't, I probably shouldn't say this to you, but my hope is, yes, that they learn their multiplication tables from memory. My hope is that they can identify all 50 states and name the capitals. But here's the deal. If they don't, I'm okay with that. Because my number one job is to make sure that your child leaves me as a better human than they came to me. Kinder, more compassionate, more understanding, harder working, more confident. That's really what's important to me. I want to send off a better version of who they are capable of being. And if I pour into them at that level, and if that's what my real goal is, then there's nothing lost in that. And that's huge, because then they walk back into the four walls of their home every day as a little bit of a better person, which has an impact on the people that they live with, on the adults that they become, on the children that they raise, on the grandchildren that they influence. And we have to start to see our investment as people in terms of that ripple, especially as we're approaching these higher levels of leadership. The legacy leader has transcended personal success, moved through organizational success, and arrived at something that most people only glimpse at from a distance. They're not asking, what am I accomplishing? They're asking, what am I multiplying? They don't measure their impact by what happened on their watch. They measure it by what continues to happen long after they have left the room. They think in decades, in generations, in movements, rather than moments. The legacy leader is often the quietest person in the room. And it's not because they have nothing to say, but because they have learned that extraordinary discipline of speaking only when their words will add genuine value. They're not performing leadership anymore. They're living it so naturally that it's become indistinguishable from who they are. The people they have developed are out there in the world developing other people. The ideas they planted are flowering in places they've never been and in lives they've never touched directly. To those around them, the legacy leader feels less like a boss and more like a compass. They don't tell you where to go. They help you understand where you are, orient you toward true north, and trust you with the journey. Think about the mentors who shaped your life most profoundly. Chances are most of them never knew the full weight of their impact on you. They weren't tracking it. They were simply showing up fully present, fully invested, fully committed to the growth of the person in front of them. That is level 5. That is a legacy leader. And when I think about legacy leadership, I think about John C. Maxwell in this context often and with great personal gratitude. Here's a man who has spent decades not simply leading, but developing leaders who develop leaders who develop leaders. His impact is not contained in any single book or conference or conversation. It is living and breathing in the people he poured into, who poured into others, who are right now pouring into someone who does not yet know how profoundly their life is about to change. That is a compounding interest of legacy leadership, and it's available to every single person willing, keyword there, willing to do the work of the levels that precede it. So here are 3 things that mark a true legacy leader. Number 1, their impact outlives their presence. The legacy leader doesn't need to be in the room for the culture they built to continue operating at its highest level. The values, the standards, the vision, these are so deeply embedded in the people they developed that the leader's physical absence changes nothing about the direction of the mission. That is not dependency. That is legacy. And it is the most powerful thing that a leader can leave behind. Presence, their choices, their values, their consistency. They're not trying to be a legacy leader. They simply are one. And that distinction, subtle as it sounds, is the difference between a level that is performed and a level that is inhabited. A legacy leader is not asking what they are accomplishing. They're asking what they are multiplying. The measure of their leadership is not what happened on their watch. It's what continues long after they've left the room. Okay, so now I come to you as your friend who also happens to be your success coach. Coming to ask you the question that you've probably been answering internally since we started climbing the ladder today. Where are you on this ladder right now? Not where do you want to be, not where you present yourself as being, not where you think you should be by now, given everything you've been through and everything you've worked for. Where are you actually? And here's the second question, which matters just as much, by the way. What level are you trying to produce results from? Because that gap between where you are operating and where you're expecting your outcomes to come from is the source of more frustration, more stagnation, and more quiet desperation than almost any other dynamic in leadership and in life. Remember, you can't sustain level 5 impact from level 2 behaviors. You cannot build a legacy while operating from a participant's posture. The ladder is not being unkind when it refuses to let you skip rungs. It's being honest. It's telling you that the person you are right now is not yet equipped to steward what you are asking for. And that shouldn't freak you out and it shouldn't discourage you. It should get you fired up. The answer is to never want the next level more desperately. The answer is to become more deliberately. And one more thing, because I know some of you are listening to this and thinking not just about yourselves, but about your teams, your organizations, your families. This framework is a diagnostic as much as it is a personal development tool. Where are the people around you on this ladder? Where are you inadvertently keeping people at a level below their capacity because you have not yet created the conditions for their advancement? The leader who understands this ladder does not just use it to evaluate themselves, they use it to evaluate everyone in their sphere. So let's talk about 3 moves. This week, no exceptions. This week, I want you to do 3 things with what you heard today. First, identify your rung with radical honesty, not your aspirational rung, your actual rung. Write it down, name it out loud if you need to. This awareness, this level of awareness alone is transformative. So to help you do this, I've actually created a quiz that you can take to find out where you are. I'm going to link it in the show notes. You can DM me quiz. I'll send it right over to you. And I want you to take it and find out where you are. Second, identify the single most significant gap between where you are and the next level. Is it accountability? Is it relational investment? Is it strategic thinking? Is it ego? Whatever it is, name it specifically. Vague awareness, you guys, produces vague results. So precise awareness produces precise results. And I put all this together because I want you to see when you understand where you are, it reduces frustration over what hasn't happened yet. And it's not about, why isn't this happening? It's no longer about that. It's like, what could I be doing to move myself closer to that goal? It's always going to be the way we think, what we believe, the way that we show up. It's always going to be tied to those actions. So when we can get really precise around where we are and what we need to do to elevate to the next level, we have so much more clarity and our steps become so much more aligned. We become so much more intentional. Third, I want you to choose one action this week that reflects the leader you are becoming rather than the leader you have been. One intentional, values aligned, next level action. Not 10, 1. Repeated consistently over time. That one action will move you up the ladder more reliably than any amount of inspiration alone. Small moves, consistent moves, intentional moves. That is how the ladder gets climbed. That is how you become the leader that the next level requires. And this is how we create real growth, real change, real progress, which is perfect because that's exactly, as you know, what this podcast is all about. If this episode gave you something real today, please share it with someone who is standing at a rung and wondering why the view isn't changing. Leave a review, find me on Instagram, and come join me in the Brewing Success community where we do this work together every single week. Until next time, growth is the mission, change is the reward, progress is the goal. Let's work toward becoming the leader your next level requires. The ladder isn't going anywhere, but guess what? You are, and that journey to the next level, it starts today. Until next time, my friends, see you back here on Brewing Success.